On top of the substantial buff to the Blue Eyes White Dragon, another one of Kaiba's decks has received quite the buff. It's time to talk XYZ. Kaiba has always been one of the most powerful characters in the entirety of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, and it's no secret that his brand new Blue Eye support has really taken storm of the meta and has really rooted itself in as a solid contender. But the Blue Eyes cards aren't the only new cards that Kaiba got in this latest pack. We have the retrains and support of the original Machine Union monsters that he also used in the anime, being the X Cross Cannon, the Y Yarrowhead, and the Z Zillion Tank, as well as the brand new boss monster, of course, the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. These cards bring a whole new layer of life to the original ABC Machine Union strategy, and it really is very impressive to see the boards that this deck can put up with all of their new support. So we're going to cover off the new cards now, of course. Starting off with the X Cross Cannon, this is the deck's new dedicated starter card, on top of course, the original Union hanger it already had. This guy can special summon himself directly from the hand if you control a Light Machine Fusion or a Union monster, which is virtually all of the time. However, not only is he an amazing extender, he also is your deck's dedicated starter card, because once he's on the field, he can equip an appropriate Machine Union monster from the deck directly to himself, of course being the regular Beatbuster Drake, which is going to kick off all of your play. So X Cross Cannon is an incredible starter card. Y Yarrowhead and Z Zillion Tank are very similar in nature. They're both, of course, Machine Unions that, just like all of the other Machine Unions, can special summon themselves from the back row while being used as an equip card. But these guys, when special summoned, will equip onto themselves even more of your Union monsters. Y Yarrowhead will equip from hand or graveyard, and the Z Zillion Tank will equip from the banish pile, and neither of those effects are once per turn. So you can loop these effects over and over to recur back a whole bunch of your Light Machine Unions from the graveyard, banish pile, or even the hand. And we all already know how powerful that can be, given the strength of Beatbuster Drake and its ability to search for cards every time it's sent from the field to the graveyard. So Y Yarrowhead and Z Zillion Tank bring back a ton of recursion for your Beatbuster Drake, and the Beatbuster Drake then, of course, brings out a ton of consistency for the deck overall. So the new X, Y, and Z main deck cards are all phenomenal at getting you started and keeping you going. We also have a brand new spell card in the form of Union Activation. This card will allow you to send a Light Machine normal or Union monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard to add a Light Machine monster with the same attack but a different original name from deck to hand. While the rest of your deck is entirely focused around Light Machine Union monsters, that excludes the X Cross Cannon. Union Activation brings X Cross Cannon more consistently back into the fold, not only acting as an additional way of starting your combos by grabbing it at the beginning, but also a way of interweaving the X Cross Cannon into the rest of your combos without being limited by the fact that it isn't a Union monster. So they did take that into consideration and patch that issue before it became a problem. Then we have Union Pilot, the dedicated partner to Union Driver. Union Driver has always been a staple of Light Machine Unions, but now Union Pilot makes that even better, because once the Union Driver has used its effect and banished himself, the Union Pilot allows you not only to re-equip it so it can summon itself, Union Pilot itself is a free special summon, so that makes it extremely easy to put 2 level 5 machines onto your board, which means summoning Cyber Dragon Infinity has never been easier. Union Pilot adds a ton of consistency to the addition of Cyber Dragon Infinity to your sort of mid-combo board to protect you from hand traps, as well as making sure that you always have plays. We have the Fusion Monster Union Controller, which on summon will search your deck for any card that mentions Union Monster in its text. That is an incredibly versatile card, because not only does it let you grab some of the most powerful cards that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever seen in the form of a Union Hanger, it also allows your deck the ability to search for unauthorized reactivation or indeed Union activation throughout the combo to ensure that you always have access to every piece of your various fusion monsters. It can also special summon from hand any Light Machine Union monster for free, so it is also an extender, which is incredibly powerful. So utilizing Union Controller, you're going to be able to loop and very much abuse the fact that the Y Yarrowhead and Z Zillion Tank are not once per turn. You're going to see that in the combos, though, that this card is absolutely nuts. And to round out for the new support, we of course have the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon, a brand new boss monster for this deck, retraining upon the original, keeping very much the same style and type of effect as the original as well. So this card can, once per opponent's turn, discard a card to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. It is very much the destruction equivalent of the ABC Dragon Buster. They're both very similar in terms of their level of power, and what really makes them powerful is how easy they are to summon. All you need to do is put the X Cross Cannon, Y Dragon Head, and Z Zillion Tank into your graveyard, and you will be able to summon this guy out simply by banishing them from the grave. So he's a very powerful disruption that is very easily summoned, and if he does find himself in the graveyard, you can banish this card to reveal a level 8 Light Machine Fusion monster in your extra deck to special summon up to 3 of the fusion materials mentioned on it from your graveyard or banish pile. That, of course, referring to the ABC Dragon Buster. So once you've summoned out your first Dragon Buster, you don't even necessarily have to give it up in order to summon back the materials. You can very easily use the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon to do that, to go into your second ABC Dragon Buster while keeping your first on board. And through the use of these tools, we're able to work in a myriad of other really cool new support cards and strategies for the deck. We're of course using the Galaxy Photon Dragon and the Galaxy Soldier package to make Infinity, and even Constellar Pleiades very consistent. We've got a little Fiendsmith engine, a very small Fiendsmith engine, designated only to get your Light Machine Unions off the field, so you can abuse the insane amount of gas you generate, because you do end up getting locked into light only monsters from the extra deck, which does limit how you can actually fully take advantage of all of the crazy gas that you end up making, and the Fiendsmith engine is one of the best ways of doing that. Silhouette Rabbit and the Angel Statue Azaroon adds even more disruption to the end board, while consistency pieces like Lina make sure that even going second, you always have plays you can make, especially in a metagame filled to the brim with light monsters. So all in all, I am really impressed with this deck. The new support patches a ton of issues that the original had. You're no longer going to find yourself with hands where it's just B Buster Drake Pass being 99% of your games. You actually have dedicated starter cards that will put multiple monsters on board that will really get your plays going. Now, it is still Light Machine Union, it still has its issues. You're going to see in some of the replays that there were some other cards that I was testing out throughout the build that we ended up cutting, and I'm going to talk more about that towards the end when we're doing the deck profile. But before we get into the deck profile, I have 2 combos that I want to show you. The first combo is going to be taking advantage of the legendary Union Hanger, the tried and true starter card of Union machines for quite a long time, and one of the most powerful field spells in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! This card by itself generates you an end board of 7 disruptions, that being Constellar Pleiades, Fiendsmith Desiree, Saber Dragon Infinity, the ABC Dragon Buster, the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon, Silhouette Rabbit, as well as the Angel Statue Azaroon. So I totally stacked end board with 7 individual interruptions, 8 I guess if you want to look at Desiree's 2, but this combo is absolutely nuts. And second to that is a combo utilizing the X Cross Cannon or indeed Union activation to achieve a very similar end board, this time having 6 individual interruptions, your Desiree, Saber Dragon Infinity, Silhouette Rabbit, and Azaroon, as well as your ABC and XYZ monsters. So really, really nuts combos, and they just are so dramatically consistent. They have so much gas, and the ability to play through hand traps is really just on a totally different level. The deck feels like a totally new deck. It's hard to even compare it to ABC before the release of this support. So of course we're going to be showing off the combos here in just a second. I have a couple of replays as well towards the end that I want to show off, and then we're going to finish up the video by doing a deck profile, going through all of the cards that we have in the deck, and perhaps more importantly, why certain cards were omitted, as well as options you can sort of explore when it comes to building this deck for yourself. I only aim to provide a template for these decks for you then to take and build upon. I think this is definitely a very, very functional version of the deck. I was building this for days, and this feels like the final form to me. But there are definitely other cards and options you can explore if you want to customize the deck to your own needs. So if you want to catch more videos like this whenever we get around to uploading them, make sure you're subscribed to catch them as soon as they go live, and like this one to let me know if you enjoy the style of these videos, or if indeed you want to see anything else. You know, in the comment sections down there. Discord is linked in the description below as well. Let's just get into the video. So we're going to start off with the most powerful of the two combos, and that's going to be utilizing Union Hanger, the tried and true starter of any traditional Union deck. This card has aged very well over time. It has always been ridiculously strong and still is now, being the deck's single best starter card. So we're going to start off with the Union Hanger, and it is actually this card is the reason why we're playing a double B Buster Drake, and you're going to see why now. On activation, we're going to grab the B Buster Drake directly from deck to hand. Then we're going to normal summon the B Buster Drake. Using the Union Hanger, we get to equip it with a light Union machine from deck. We are going to choose, of course, the Union Driver, which is pretty standard. Then we'll activate the Union Driver. The Union Driver getting activated then means that we're going to be equipping the B Buster Drake with a B Buster Drake directly from the deck. And then this B Buster Drake is going to special summon itself out to the field. And now B Buster Drake, when sent to the graveyard, will search your deck for a light machine Union, and it is not once per turn or even once per chain. So we're going to link these two guys off into the Platinum Gadget, and they are both going to activate in our graveyard to search us 2 additional cards. So this helps not only you generate a ton more gas, but it also helps in a lot of situations you play through an Ash or some sort of interruption at this early stage of the combo, because people will often just try to negate whatever pops up first because they don't know what your cards do. So we're going to grab the Y Dragon Head and the Z Zillion Tank here. So we got these two to hand. Then our Platinum Gadget is going to allow us to special summon out the Y Yara Head from our hand. So out it comes. When it's summoned, it's going to bring back one of the Buster Drakes from our graveyard, equipping it onto itself, and then the B Buster Drake will special summon itself out to the field. You don't always want to special summon the B Buster Drake here, but because we've already resolved Double Search and we already have Z Zillion Tank in hand, we are okay to get this guy summoned out the field. Again, you just want to loop him as much as you can to search as many cards as you can. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Union Controller utilizing the Y Yari Head and the Platinum Gadget. So out comes our Union Controller. On summon, it's going to search our deck for Union Activation. Union Activation is, you need to grab this card during this combo because you need to get access to the X-Cross Cannon. No other card in your deck will get you access to the X-Cross Cannon. So you need to grab Union Activation here. Unauthorized Reactivations is a fantastic card, and you can do it if you already have this in hand, but you have to use this to get access to the X-Cross Cannon. So you pitch the X-Head Cannon, you grab the X-Cross Cannon. And because you control unions and fusions, or whatever the hell it is on your field, you can almost always just special summon this guy right out to the field. And this is going to be where we utilize the Union Pilot that I talked about during the intro. We're going to play the Union Pilot here. Union Pilot then can return himself to hand to equip on a Union monster from your banish pile. So we equip on the Union Driver, and then it summons itself out to the field. And because the Union Driver was just equipped, we can special summon it as well. That means we now have 2 light level 5 machines. That means we can go into the Saber Dragon Nova. Saber Dragon Nova then will immediately rank itself up into Saber Dragon Infinity. Okay, so now we got these guys out. We do need to start clearing up just a little bit of space. So we're going to go into Moon using our X-Cross Cannon and our B Buster Drake. So again, on summon of your Moon, your B Buster Drake is going to be searching your deck for even more cards. We're going to grab the Assault Core here. Of course, we already have the Sea Crush Wyvern in hand, but you'll see later in the combo we will send B Buster Drake to grave one more time, which would be the search for Sea Crush Wyvern. So you don't mind opening up these pieces. You would rather not, of course, because the more of them you search for, the more card advantage you're able to generate. But ultimately, it's not a massive issue. You can still resolve the full combo. So now we're going to go Union Controller to summon out the Z Zillion Tank here. Z Zillion Tank will activate to equip onto itself the banished Y Yari Head, which will then summon itself right here, activating to equip onto itself the B Buster Drake from the graveyard, which will then summon itself. And just like that, bang, 3 monsters onto the field. These guys looping into one another is absolutely broken. Now again, we need some space, so we're going to go into the Galaxy Photon Dragon here using the Z and the Y. You do not want to use the B. You need to send the B from field to graveyard, which means it needs to be used in a Link summon, not an Exceed summon. So Galaxy Photon Dragon, going to drop any one of those 2 to the graveyard to search your deck for the Galaxy Soldier. So we're going to add that to our hand. And now we're going to be going into our Fiendsmith cards. Using our Moon, we're going to go into Requiem. We're playing a very, very small, very tame Fiendsmith package, just enough to make use of the resources on your field. So we're going to go into Requiem, then Tribute Requiem for our Engraver. Very, very small Fiendsmith package here. We're going to now utilize the Fiendsmith Engraver as well as the Bee Buster Drake to go into our Fiendsmith sequence. Sequence then will activate to fusion summon from the graveyard into Desiree. So we're going to shuffle back our 3 light fiends to go into the Desiree here. Beautiful. Now we're going to go Silhouette Rabbit using the Galaxy Photon Dragon because you need to get Y into the graveyard as well as sequence. Going to summon out Silhouette Rabbit. We'll do it over here. Doesn't really make a difference. Silhouette Rabbit then is going to grab you the Angel statue as a rune directly from the deck. So there's another 2 interruptions right there. Sequence then going to equip itself from the graveyard onto Desiree to make sure its Omni Negates are live. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use Cyber Dragon Infinity, and we're actually going to suck up our own Union Controller because we need space. So we're going to suck up the Union Controller. Now we're going to go Galaxy Soldier. Galaxy Soldier then going to discard Sea Crush Wyvern to summon itself out to the field. And then Galaxy Soldier going to search for another Galaxy Soldier, which will discard the A Assault Core. So that's how we're getting the A and the C into the graveyard. And using our 2 level 5s, we're now going to go into Constellar Pleiades, who actually has an animation, which is pretty cool. I didn't know this guy had an animation. But Pleiades basically is a bounce. It's a targeting bounce, which is pretty solid. And lastly, we're simply going to banish from the graveyard our light machines to go into our final 2 pieces of interaction, the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon, as well as the ABC Dragon Buster, just like that. And there you go, that is the full board. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interactions. Desiree, of course, being 2 negates, so a lot of people count that as 8 interactions. I don't count that as 8 interactions, that's 7 to me. But that's 7 interactions for your opponent's turn. The only issue with this board is that you kind of actually have to wait until your opponent does something, so you can get rid of one of your cards for the Azarune. That's the only thing that is kind of holding you back a little bit, which is weird, right? The problem with this deck is that it has too much gas. You get too big of an end board to even summon the Angel statue. But you get so many other interruptions that by the time your opponent actually gets through and manages to get you into a position where Azarune becomes relevant, you've almost certainly already won the game. So I would not worry about that even slightly. That's the full combo for the Union Hanger. The Union Activation and X-Cross Cannon combo is a little bit different. It ends on something similar, minus the Pleiades, but the actual steps themselves are pretty different. Alright, getting into our second combo, utilizing the X-Cross Cannon. Like I said earlier, the Union Activation does the exact same thing because it just grabs this card. So we're going to normal summon the X-Cross Cannon. Using its effect, we're going to target and equip onto itself the Bee Buster Drake directly from our deck. Bee Buster Drake then will activate to summon itself out to the field. And we're going to go into Platinum Gadget, very much like we did in the previous combo as well. This time we only get 1 search instead of 2, but that's fine. I'm going to show you how to get the second search now. We're going to go Bee Buster Drake, of course, grabbing our Y Yari head. Then we're going to go Platinum Gadget. And we're going to go the Y Yari head here. This is going to activate to equip onto itself the Bee Buster Drake from the graveyard. Now, last time we special summoned out the Bee Buster Drake, and we were able to do that because we already had the Z-Zillion tank in hand. If we were to summon the Bee Buster Drake here and then go into Union Controller, as we're expecting to do, we would not have a very easy way of putting Bee Buster Drake into the graveyard while maintaining Union Controller on the field for the use of a special summon effect. So we need to get this into the graveyard first, which means this time we are not going to special summon it, and instead we're going to go directly in the Union Controller, which results in Bee Buster Drake being destroyed and sent to the graveyard. So we're going to activate both of these cards now. So the Bee Buster Drake then is going to get searching our deck. We're going to grab the Z-Zillion tank. And then the Union Controller is going to grab us Union Hanger. I've already got Union Hanger in hand, so I'm going to grab either Frontline Base or unauthorized reactivation, neither of which play into the combo. I'm just doing it to show. We've already got Union Hanger in hand here, so we're going to activate the Union Hanger. This is going to grab us a Light Machine Union from deck to hand, so we can grab basically any one of these. Let's go for, say, the A Assault Core. Why not? Now we're going to go Union Controller. We're going to activate this to summon the Z-Zillion tank. Z-Zillion tank then is going to activate, as well as the Union Hanger. It's going to target it. There's a very specific reason we grab the A Assault Core. It's going to become fairly obvious very soon. So we're going to equip on here the Union Driver as we normally would. Z-Zillion tank then going to equip on the Y Yari Head as well. So now the Y Yari Head is going to activate to summon itself. It's going to bring back the B-Buster Drake from the graveyard. Just like that. Now we're going to activate the B-Buster Drake here, summoning it. And we're also going to go Union Driver, banishing the Union Driver to grab the Sea Crush Wyvern here as well. So you can, sorry, the B-Buster Drake here. So we're not grabbing Sea Crush Wyvern because we're going to be going into the Galaxy Soldier line. And we want to have 2 lights in hand for discard fodder. So that's why we're doing things the way we are. We're going to go B-Buster Drake here. We're going to summon it out. And now we're going to start making space first and foremost. So we're going to go into the Closed Moon. We're going to send our 2 copies of the B-Buster Drake. Now here's the trick. Here's where a lot of people might make a little mistake. You don't always want to activate 2 copies of this. And you need to sort of count and remember how many Light Machine Unions you have in your deck. At this stage in the combo, we have 2 Light Machine Unions left at our disposal. We have Sea Crush Wyvern, and we have Union Pilot. Union Pilot is not a card you want to have in your hand. It's a card you want to have in deck to play off of unauthorized reactivation, Union Hanger, or something else. Not a card you want to have in hand. So we're not actually going to activate the second B-Buster Drake, but just know that if at any stage during your combos you were ashed or interrupted and you lost one of your searches, you actually have a leftover search that you're not even fully taking advantage of here in the form of B-Buster Drake. So I'm not going to activate this guy. We're just going to grab the Sea Crush Wyvern because that's all we need. Now we're going to go our 2 level 4s into the Galaxy Photon Dragon. Galaxy Photon Dragon, then detaching one of the materials, we're going to grab ourselves the Galaxy Soldier. We're going to add that to our hand. We're actually going to go for the Galaxy Soldier now. So we're going to tribute off our Sea Crush Wyvern, the summon out. Then the Galaxy Soldier is going to activate its effect to search our deck for the second Galaxy Soldier, which we will then use to draw the A Assault Core. Beautiful. Now we're going to go these 2 into Saber Dragon Nova. And then Nova is going to be immediately ranked up into the rank 6 Saber Dragon Infinity. So now we have Infinity on deck. So we're going to go Moon here into the Requiem. We're going to do our Fiendsmith part now. Requiem going to come out and immediately tribute itself to summon out the Engraver from the deck. So we're going to summon this guy out here. Then we're going to go into sequence using the Engraver and the Galaxy Photon Dragon. You want the Y Dragon Head engraved, you need to get rid of the Photon Dragon. Then we're going to go sequence the Fusion Summon, just like we would otherwise. So into Desiree by shuffling back Engraver, Requiem, and Moon. Out it comes. And then using the remaining 2 monsters, the Sequence and the Union Controller, we're going to go into Silhouette Rabbit. Silhouette Rabbit going to grab us the Angel Statue Azaroon for our extra interruptions. And then lastly, just like before, we're going to... Well, sorry, first we need to go Sequence onto our Desiree. So we're going to activate Sequence and equip it on for our negates. And then we're going to banish the XYZ cards from our grave to summon out our Hyper Dragon Cannon. And then we'll banish the ABC to go into our ABC Dragon Buster. So it gives us virtually the same board. The only difference is we do not have Pleiades here. We have everything else though, which is still a remarkable board. And Pleiades not being here means that the Azaroon is free and able to be summoned out to the field. meaning you've got a little bit more flexibility with the Azaroon, so it's a bit of a trade-off, right? It's technically less interruptions, but you do get to use the Azaroon to much greater effect whenever you want, so I guess sort of take it or leave it, right? Some people would honestly probably prefer this version of the M board. It's a little bit less susceptible to specifically Dark Ruler. Everything else is the exact same, it doesn't matter, but I guess this board is better technically against exclusively Dark Ruler no more. But yeah, those are the two combos. They're both pretty fucking insane, as you can tell from the breadth of the interaction that we're able to put up onto the field. But let's see the deck in action. Alright, getting into our first replay, we're starting off with a bit of an awkward hand because you don't like seeing the Union Pilot in hand, but the rest of this hand is hella gas. We're going to go for the X Cross Cannon here, special summoning out the B-Buster Drake. I did feel a delay in the reason we didn't like normal summon B-Buster Drake and then special summon the X Cross Cannon is I did feel a delay in draw phase. I was worried about being a potential Max C. I didn't want to trigger this to give him draws off the Max C. So we are going to banish the Union Driver, placing the Sea Crush Wyvern onto the field. We're going to summon the Sea Crush Wyvern, linking off into the Platinum Gadget. You can see here what I mean when I say that this deck is definitely better played by ear and using it's just sort of your imagination and creativity as you continue to play. Now, our opponent is going to go for Ash Blossom and Bestial Magnamut. The Bestial Magnamut and the Ash Blossom both going to be shutting down potential parts of our combo. The Crush Wyvern being banished does definitely suck because we only play out at one. So we're going to special summon the B-Buster Drake from hand off of the effect of the Crush Wyvern. We're going to special summon the Y-Yara Head, bringing back the Buster Drake summoning itself, so we can contact fuse into the Union Controller grabbing us on off a range reactivation. We're now going to link into Moon of the Closed Heaven, B-Buster Drake and B-Buster Drake, both activating a Grave to search our deck for additional Light Machine Union monsters. We're going to grab the Z Zillion Tank as well as, of course, our A Assault Core. So you'll see aspects of the original planned combos coming into play here, so it's all about sort of sequencing and understanding what plays you're sort of ideally going to make at different times, regardless of the resources you're using to make those plays. Now we're going into the Photon Dragon activating detaching material to grab us the Galaxy Soldier, linking off our Moon into Fiendsmith Requiem then going to activate the Tribute itself to summon out the Fiendsmith Engraver coming out, then we're going to use it in a link summon as well as our Photon Dragon to go into Fiendsmith Sequence activating the Fusion summon, shuffling back our 3 Light Fiends to go into Desiree. Now we're going to link 2 off into Silhouette Rabbit, just freeing up as much room as we possibly can. Sequence going to activate to equip onto the Desiree so we can go Galaxy Soldier to drop the A Assault Core. Galaxy Soldier searching another Galaxy Soldier, which will then discard the Union Pilot to summon itself out to the field as well. So even though we drew the Union Pilot, we still managed to go into Cyber Dragon Infinity, which is insane. So that's why you don't really mind in this build as much as you used to. We're going to suck up that Magnamut before going into the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. So even through a Magnamut and an Ash Blossom, we're in a position where we have this just indestructible board right here. So our opponent's going to go, I think they go, yeah, main 1, Walls of the Imperial Tomb, activating its effect to discard to return a card back to the deck to grab a Horus monster from the deck. We're going to use the XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon, discarding a card to destroy the Walls of the Imperial Tomb before it can activate. Saber Dragon Infinity going to be activating to negate the Naturia Camellia. So Naturia Camellia is going to be negated and destroyed, and at that stage our opponent doesn't have any plays left. There is a 0% chance that they were going to play through that end board. That's pretty insane. This is another example of an awkward hand where we're going to be starting off with double Galaxy Soldier in hand, but it's fine because we have more than enough gas to get started. Normal summon the B-Buster Drake and equip the Buster Drake with the Union Driver from our deck. We're going to use that to equip on the second B-Buster Drake, which we will summon to go into our Platinum Gadget. Now, Platinum Gadget is going to be able to special summon a monster from hand once we resolve the 2 copies of the B-Buster Drake. That's when our opponent's going to go for the Max C. Luckily, of course, we had the Cross-Out Designator here in hand, so we're going to negate that Max C. I don't believe our opponent has any more hand traps for us here, so that was pretty lucky on our part having that hand. Because Max C sucks. It really does hurt, which is why we play so many outs to that card. We're going to go into the Y and Z directly from deck to hand. We're going to go Platinum Gadget to summon the Y activating to bring back the B-Buster Drake from the graveyard. B-Buster Drake summoning itself, Contact Fusion into the Union Controller grabbing its Union activation so we can get access to the X-Cross Cannon. Remember, this is the only stage during the combo you can get access to this card, so if you don't do it now, you can't do it at all. We're going to go to the X-Cross Cannon, equipping on Union Pilot returning itself back to hand, summoning itself before equipping on Union Driver for it to summon itself, going into Cyber Dragon Nova then being ranked up into the Cyber Dragon Infinity. So Galaxy Soldiers in hand aren't really doing a whole lot of anything because we already got the big dog on the field. Buster Drake gonna grab us the A Assault Core directly from deck to hand. We're gonna go Union Controller to summon out the Z Zillion Tank, using it to equip on the Y Dragon Head. Y Yara Head's gonna activate to equip on the B Buster Drake. Buster Drake then not summoning itself just yet because we need the space. We're going to go Requiem attributing itself to go into Fiend Smith Engraver, as well as our Union Controller going into Fiend Smith Sequence. Now we're going to go straight for an Exceed Summon here. No reason to summon the B-Buster Drake here. It just would have been taking up space. All we need to do is get it to grave for its search. We do not need to summon that card right there. So we're going to grab the Sea Crush Wyvern directly from deck to hand. We're going to drop the Assault Core to summon itself. Galaxy Soldier dropping the Sea Crush Wyvern to summon itself, going into Constellar Pleiada. As you can see how much advantage we lost from having done that. I wanted to go into the Galaxy Photon Dragon anyway, just to show that we would have had access to them, but you can see how much card advantage we lose by opening up those cards. We're going to play Azaroon directly onto the field, sequence then equipping itself onto the Desiree, banishing the XYZ pieces to go into the Hyper Dragon Cannon, and then banishing the ABC pieces to go into the ABC Dragon Buster. There you go. Pretty insane board. Again, the board you saw from the combos, it's pretty straightforward. They're going to go Ariana the Labyrinth Servant. They're going to be playing Labyrinth here, which I thought this was actually going to be pretty funny. They're going to go Typhon right away to try and restrict the usage of our high-level cards, but luckily, Pleiades is like the anti-Typhon card, so Pleiades just bounces that shit straight back to the extra deck, dropping a card off the Dragon Buster to banish the welcome Labyrinth that was face down on the field. So that's a free banish there, where we're able to get rid of backer as well. Straight to battle phase, 3k to the face. We swing with Constellar Pleiades. They're going to go for Trap Trick. We're going to activate Dragon Buster to target the other card to bait him into activating the card. So now he's got two face-up cards, which we can use Desiree to negate both. Since Desiree is equipped with a Link 2 monster, it can negate up to two face-up cards. So we negate the Ace Dragon Prison, as well as the Trap Trick that activated originally. Both are negated, 25 to the face, and 3k for lethal. Pretty straightforward showings. Again, this is just kind of how the deck rolls. I've got one other replay though, and this one in particular is going to be a little bit goofy because it shows us testing some of the cards we don't actually have on our final deck list, but the game was kind of funny, so I want to show it anyway. Alright, getting into our next game, and you can see from this opening hand why we're not playing cards like the Furion cards or even Frontline Base. Yeah, yikes. Not a great hand. We're going to go for our card here. They're going to go for the Mulcharmy Pawallos, as if I can summon stuff. But that's totally fine by me. We are going to grab the Regulus here. Now, you could argue that we maybe shouldn't have activated anything to ensure that Alpha Wallows was live. But your boy just doesn't work like that. We're going to go Chicken Game. Chicken Game is going to grab them a card from the deck. I was originally thinking here, okay, this has got to be Sky Striker, right? Like, there's no way this is anything else. Then it goes Dark World Dealings, which I thought was a bit unique, grabbing us the Crush Wyvern, which will immediately discard. Turns out he's playing Skull Servants, of all things. So he's going to search for two cards directly from deck here. This guy's got, like, the craziest fucking Skull Servant deck I've ever seen in terms of just being pure Skull Servant. He really went ham in this replay. They're going to go Link Rebo here, triggering off the Skull Servant in the graveyard. I don't even know what these guys' names are. The White Lord going to discard himself to mill like 10 cards or 9 cards there. White Lord banishing himself from grave to target a card, summoning it back to the field. The White Princess activating the mill of White Prince. Link to into SP Little Knight here. Our opponent definitely does make kind of a mistake here. They do go for the SP to banish a back row. I go for Called by the Grave because in my head I was wanting to make sure that my Effective Veiler was definitely live, so I didn't want to use Effective Veiler for it to get hit by Called by the Grave. And it's not really a card I want to top deck either. So they summon out King of the Skull Servants, which has an animation. But unfortunately, because he used the SP Little Knight's effect, he could not attack us directly. He would not have had game because we had Effective Veiler, which I would have used the end of main to reduce the attack points of King of the Skull Servants down to 0 anyways. So it's fine. We didn't win this, or we didn't not die there because he was stupid. We would have had an out anyways. So now all we need to do is effectively draw any good card, and the card we draw is Union Hanger. We're going to start off by drawing an additional card. We grab the Maxi here. We're going to grab the Sea Crush Wyvern from the graveyard. Now our opponent goes for Maxi here, which is of course very annoying because nobody likes playing in the Maxi, right? Unless you're playing ABC, XYZ, and your opponent only has 18 cards left in deck. Oh yeah. So now we're going to let the Max C resolve. We're going to summon out the Furion King Regulus, of course, as a consequence. Regulus comes out, equipping onto itself the Sea Crush Wyvern. We're going to get rid of the Disc Coliseum to grab the Union Hanger. That's going to trigger the SP Little Knight to try and get rid of our Regulus. I decided to negate it, just because it doesn't really make a difference to me. I don't really want the Little Knight jumping off the field because I'm not winning this by battle. I'm winning this by deck out. We're going to go Union Hanger, grabbing the Bee-Buster Drake. Sea Crush Wyvern then special summons the Bee-Buster Drake out to the field here. So Bee-Buster Drake then going to be equipped with the Union Driver. Union Driver jumping off the field to grab another Bee-Buster Drake, summoning itself out to the field. Link to into the Platinum Gadget. Platinum Gadget then is not going to do anything yet. I always forget the two Bee-Buster Drakes have to come first. So we're going to double search off the Drake. Y are ahead and the Z Zillion tank as per usual. You'll notice that regardless of our starters or our situation, all of these sequences are very much the same because you want to have certain resources at certain points. Into the Union Controller. Union Controller then going to activate to grab us the Union Activation. Our opponent slowly but surely picking up more and more cards, pitching the S-Head Cannon to grab the X-Cross Cannon. X-Cross Cannon going to special summon itself out to the field. We're going to use its effect to play Union Pilot. Union Pilot bouncing back to hand to summon itself, then summoning the Union Driver out from the back row into the Saber Dragon Nova, and then lastly into Saber Dragon Infinity. So now we got the big dog Infinity on the field, which is going to protect us from a potential Nibiru. We're going to go into Closed Heaven here, triggering the Bee-Buster Drake to grab us the Assault Core, using Union Controller, summoning the Z-Zillion Tank. Z-Zillion Tank summoning out the Y Dragon Head, or equipping so it can summon itself. Then Y Dragon Head going to equip on itself the Bee-Buster Drake from the graveyard. We're going to go into Requiem here, using the Moon. Our opponent's got 2 cards left in deck. We're going to activate to summon the Engraver, 1 card left in deck, activating the Nibiru, the Primal Being. Of course, we've already got the Big Dog Infinity on the board. They're going to start activating cards out of their hand like crazy here. White Princess just dumping as many cards as they possibly can. White Princess is going to reduce all of the monsters on the field's attack points by 300 multiplied by their own level or rank. Doesn't matter to me. We're at 0 attack points, but my friend, you, sir, are at 0 card. Sequence for the one last draw, and then Galaxy Photon Dragon to win the game. Goofy ass setup, and that shows off why we're not playing certain cards in the final version of the deck. But again, a deck out win against Skull Servant is not something that you can just not put in a video. So there you go. Let's look at that deck profile. And here you have it. This is the final product of all of our testing. This, I think, is the most consistent and concise version of the deck to play the absolute least amount of garbage and nonsense, while having all of the tools needed to put up those crazy boards you were seeing. Now, we didn't get a lot of replays where our opponent hand-trapped us to death, so I could show that off. I'm going to be honest, your boy's not in like the highest ranks of the Duelist Cup right now, so we weren't, you know, getting hand-trapped a bunch. I would have loved to show off a game where I was getting hand-trapped, but I was playing it for hours, and those are like the best ones that I got, because most people just fucking scoop, right? You get like 6 summons into your combo, and your opponent's like, fuck that. They're not sticking around for that shit. So most of our games ended pretty swiftly in surrenders. We did, of course, lose a couple to bricking. You know, the deck does have a few bricks in it. But for the most part, we won the vast majority of our games, and we won them very, very swiftly. So let's talk about the deck. We're going to separate this down into engines, and I'm going to talk about my ratios and why we're playing the cards at the ratios we're playing them. So first of all, the ABC cards. We're going to start there. 1 Assault Core, 2 Bee-Buster Drake, and 1 Sea Crush Wyvern. Sea Crush Wyvern and Assault Core do technically have effects. When sent from field to grave, the Assault Core will recycle back a monster from grave, and Sea Crush Wyvern will summon a monster from hand, which both do have situational uses. Don't get me wrong, they're actually really solid. But I don't think they're solid enough, because these cards don't do anything in hand by themselves. Neither really does Bee-Buster Drake. The only reason we're even playing a second Bee-Buster Drake is because specifically Union Hanger. You see how many times we're able to put up a Link summon where we're sending double Bee-Buster Drake to the graveyard, which for the purposes of like a solo mode combo tutorial maybe isn't the most impactful thing, but when you're talking about real actual gameplay, having a card that can loop and consistently search you cards as crazily as Bee-Buster Drake can means that you are going to want to loop this bitch as much as you possibly can. Plus it means that your opponent can't just bestial it and be done with all of your search power. You need to have some amount of it still left. So I do think 2 copies of the Bee-Buster Drake is definitely needed. The only reason I would suggest even playing multiples of ASL Core or Sea Crush Wyvern, and this more so applies to ASL Core, is unauthorized reactivation. A small part of ASL Core, B-Buster Drake, and Sea Crush Wyvern that most people often forget is they have a third piece of text. Any monster equipped with one of these cards is immune to the card type that the monster is colored after. So ASL Core, as an orange card, makes its equipped monster immune to monster effects. B-Buster Drake makes its equipped card immune to spells, and Sea Crush Wyvern immune to traps. Which means if you wanted to play like a second ASL Core, it would mean that you can use unauthorized reactivation to very quickly make one of your cards immune to a particular type of hand trap while also setting up more gas. Which, again, is absolutely ridiculously huge. That's my favorite use of unauthorized reactivation, is playing through hand traps. This card is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, at least once in your turn. So the only reason I would see you playing a second ASL Core is because you want to use unauthorized reactivation more consistently, just in case you open up your one of ASL Core. So that's the only reason I would suggest even playing more than one of them. I think that is honestly funny enough and useful enough to where you probably could justify a second ASL Core, but I'll leave that up to you. I just want to give you the ideas. And then the double ABC Dragon Buster. I could see a world where you want to play 3 of this, but I'm telling you, man, the extra deck is super tight. It's just you don't have any room for flex in the extra. So the second copy of ABC Dragon Buster is primarily to act as a target off of the Hyper Dragon Cannon, or just traditionally as a way of looping your first one off the field to summon back the materials to go into your second one. So you've always played multiple copies of this card. In fact, the way in which they limited this deck originally was putting this guy to 1, because not having multiple of him was a huge nerf to the deck. So that's the ABC cards, very, very straightforward. The XYZ cards, we've got 3 copies of the X-Cross Cannon, 1 Y Yara Head, and 1 Z Zillion Tank. Of course, the X-Cross Cannon is one of the best starter cards in your deck. We already covered that off. And the Y Yara Head and the Z Zillion Tank are both extremely loopable cards, but they don't necessarily do a lot unless you already have other gas existing in your hand. So these guys aren't the best top decks in the world unless you already have some other way of getting started. So if you have, say, Union Activation and Y Dragon Head, that's fucking awesome, because Y Dragon Head then doesn't have to be searched off the B-Buster Trick, which increases your resiliency to the hand traps. So you don't really mind opening these cards, but you don't want to open these cards, if that makes sense. So we're only playing each of them at 1. I have not really had an issue with that lately. It hasn't come up yet. Z Zillion Tank being able to recycle back at least one of your banished machine pieces usually makes your deck pretty resilient to Bestials. But again, one of each has been totally fine so far. And we got the 3 copies of the Union Activation, of course, just additional copies of X-Cross Cannon. I don't see a reason as to why you would want to play less than 3 of this. You do, by consequence, have to play the one of X-Head Cannon. Luckily, this can pitch from hand or deck, so if you open up the X-Head Cannon, you can still use this to grab the Cross Cannon. You, of course, just... What the hell did I just take out of my deck? Engraver. You, of course, don't want to have to do that, because you don't want to draw cards out of your hand. So you run this one of... If you draw it, sucks to suck, but whatever, your combo still works. But most of the time, you're not going to see this card, and it's just to be dumped off of the Union Activation. And then the one of XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. A lot of people be playing this card too. I can kind of see why. I don't really... At the same time, I don't even really know if I do, if that makes sense. So the circumstance where you would summon a second copy of this, right? Because unlike the ABC Dragon Buster, this card does not summon back its own materials. It can't target itself off of its own effect because it needs a target at level 8. This card is a level 9. The reason a lot of people play 2 of this, and the reason 2 of it could be useful, is specifically the ABC Dragon Buster does not need to summon back its own original pieces. So in theory, the idea is you use ABC Dragon Buster to jump off the field to summon back the XYZ pieces, and then you use XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon to reveal the second ABC Dragon Buster to summon back its pieces from the banish pile. So you kind of crisscross a little bit. That's how you would go into a second one of each. That has never come up for me, not even once. But I do see the world where you can do it. If you wanted to drop, the only even semi-disposable card in this deck is Lina. If you wanted to drop Lina for a second Hyper Dragon Cannon, go nuts. It has literally never come up. So do with that information as you will. And that covers off the main sort of actual cards. We got the one of Union Driver and one of Union Pilot, of course, for comboing off through our X Cross Cannon or Union Hanger. Both, I think you need both. I know a lot of people are going to tell you Union Pilot is optional. I think if you're not playing Union Pilot, you're just actively putting yourself at a disadvantage. This card is fucking insane. So yes, you have to play both of these cards. They're both incredible. Other engine pieces, Double Galaxy Soldier alongside our Galaxy Photon Dragon. Of course, you gotta have these guys in here that make Cyber Dragon Infinity significantly more consistent, and in an ideal scenario can even put Constellar Pleiades onto your M board. I think Constellar Pleiades isn't a card I've seen a lot of in many other people's decks, but in my testing, I kept on finding myself in situations where I've already summoned Infinity off of the Union cards, and then I just have two Galaxy Soldiers. And it's not like you can't not use the Galaxy Soldiers, because you need to use their discards to put the A and C pieces into your graveyard. So you need to summon them. But then what are you going to do with them? So my solution to that problem was Pleiades. If you have a different one you want to use, by all means. But this card has unironically been exceptionally useful to me. So the Double Soldier, the Galaxy Photon Dragon, and kind of Pleiades are part of that little engine there. Triple Union activation, Triple Union Hanger, no-brainer. Again, if you're not playing this card at 3, you're just playing it wrong. On-off edge reactivation at 3, you could argue playing less of this, but I think you would be silly. It, through Union Driver, makes a ton of 2-card combos possible. Basically, any machine summon plus on-off edge reactivation is a full combo. That, and it can also play in response to opponent's hand traps to make your shit immune to hand traps. Sea Crush Wyvern make you immune to Imperm. ASL Core covers pretty much anything else. So yeah, I think this card at 3 is a must-have as well. And then the only other engine piece, we have the Engraver as well, Fiendsmith Engraver. We are playing a Fiendsmith engine purely because there's nothing else really that you can play in the extra deck and that will take advantage of the incredible amount of gas you generate, and it's only because your XYZ pieces, they light lock you for your extra deck. So there are technically a couple of options and avenues you could go down that aren't Fiendsmith, you know, things like Nightmare Griffin and such, but I'm not going to lie, they're really lackluster, and they often put you in very awkward situations. So that's why we've chosen to play the Fiendsmith engine. It really does add a lot to the deck, and I know some people are really against these cards for whatever fucking reason, but they are good, and they serve a very distinct purpose in this deck. I've been enjoying this a lot. We are only playing the one Engraver in the main deck. We're not playing, you know, the Tract and the Lurie and all that, because number one, those cards are bricks, and we're already playing a deck that you kind of have enough cards in your deck that you don't want to see in hand. And you don't need Tract or the additional copies of this, because you're accessing everything directly through Moon. The Fiendsmith engine is not here to be the Fiendsmith engine. The Fiendsmith engine is here to get shit off the field. That's the entire purpose of it being here. So you don't need any of that other shit, because none of that other shit actually facilitates you linking shit off the field. They're all there to put Fiendsmith cards on the field, specifically. That's not what you're after. So you don't need to play any of that extra bullshit, just the one of Engraver, the Desiree, the Requiem, and the Sequence. So that's 2 UR cards and 2 SR cards. You really can't go wrong with that. That is like as bare bones as it gets. And then the last piece, of course, is Azaroon. We chose for Silhouette Rabbit to be our final sort of extra deck piece alongside the Azaroon, because really there wasn't a lot of other good link monsters you could use to get Sequence off the field. Because ultimately, again, that's all it's here for. This card is just here to get Sequence, as well as at least one of your additional monsters off the field, so you can better take advantage of your M board. Originally, I had Griffin in this spot, but Nightmare Griffin was exceptionally clunky. While you could summon it very easily, you couldn't summon it in a very good position for its arrows very easily. So I ended up opting for Silhouette Rabbit instead. You can, of course, experiment with other options too, but I just thought that this one worked best. And that's it pretty much for the main deck engine cards. We are playing a lot on non-engine. We got triple Veeler, double Max C, triple Ash Blossom. We got triple for Wallows. We got the one of Nibiru. We've got double Cult of the Grave, one cross-out Designator. Now, why are we not playing Imperm? Why are we not playing Droll? Cards like that. I chose Veeler and Nib over Imperm and Droll, specifically because these monsters are light. It doesn't come up very often, but on occasion you're going to find yourself in a hand where you open up with the Galaxy Soldier, and maybe you want to play an Infinity before anything else to make your combo immune to hand traps, to either bait out your opponent's hand traps and force them to stop the Galaxy Soldier plays, or directly to go into Infinity before your 5th summon. And to do that, you need at least 1 or 2 other light monsters in hand. So we're playing hand traps that are light monsters in order to make that more consistent. That's the idea. Pretty much as simple as that. In terms of the rest of the cards in the extra, the 1-of Union Controller, of course, double ABC, 1 Desiree, 1 XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon, 1 Galaxy Photon Dragon, 1 Pleiades, 1 each of Infinity and Nova, 1 Requiem, 1 Platinum Gadget, 1 Lina, 1 Moon of the Closed Heaven, 1 Sequence, and 1 Silhouette Rabbit. There's really not a lot of flex space in this extra deck, I'm going to be honest. The only cards you could maybe cut would be Lina, of course, is one that you can cut. Lina's pretty good though, but you can cut it. And the only other one is maybe Pleiades, but only if you can think of another card that allows you to better take advantage of double Galaxy Soldier on your end board when you've already got Infinity. So if you can think of a card that takes better advantage of the 2 Galaxy Soldiers on your end board without going into Infinity because you'll already have Infinity, then by all means put that in here in Pleiades' place. But until you do, I'm going to pick Pleiades because not only is this card really good and very easily accessible, it fixes that specific problem that I was having with this deck. Yeah, that's my take. I have been absolutely loving this deck. I adore this deck to fucking pieces. It is unironically one of... I have always loved ABC. Always. I've got other videos on this deck already from way back in the day. But this just reinvigorates my love for this deck. I am personally... It's one of my favorites. It's just such a cool concept. It's so much fun to play. Crazy amount of gas. It plays through hand traps like it's nobody's business. It is ultimately just an absolute blast. So if you have the cards, do give it a try. It's not that expensive of a deck. There's definitely a couple of URs that you may not already have. You may have pulled some copies of the ABC Dragon Buster when going for the Blue Eyes cards, and if you did, fantastic. Outside of that, all of the older cards are typically sort of SRs, and most of the other URs are cards that you will have already had, right? I mean, most people have an Infinity already from previous. Maybe newer players don't, because it hasn't seen play in a while, but most players, especially older players, will have Saber Dragon Infinity from playing other decks in the past. You've got, you know, the Fiendsmith combo, you should really already have these cards. Silhouette Rabbits, maybe a UR you have to craft. Pleiades is a UR you'll have to craft. These, hopefully you got these chasing Blue Eyes if you went in for Blue Eyes. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to stop rambling here. If you got this far into the video, make sure, of course, that you like the video, and subscribe to catch more as they come out. I'm not entirely sure what this is going to look like post-editing because you've always been enjoying his animation and such instead. So if you like the editing or anything else that is done to this video, again, a like helps a lot. You can leave a comment, of course, saying what you liked, what you didn't, what you think could be done to improve. Always open to feedback, and I would recommend, even for things like that, joining the Discord, especially if you've got any knowledge of editing or any tips or tools or trade secrets you want to share with me. I'm always open to listening and improving. I'm more than happy to jump on a call with people who know what they're talking about, because that would be an awful lot of fun, right? So if you like the editing, again, I do work pretty hard on it. It's just all a one-man band here, right? I'm doing everything myself, so it does take a long time, and it does represent a lot of effort, but I really do enjoy doing it, and I hope that you enjoy watching it. Anyways, I'm done talking. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.